Hello and welcome. Thank you for listening. My name is Sarah Baumert. I'm a yoga teacher, Feldenkrais practitioner, and host of the Sarah B. Yoga podcast. The Sarah B. Yoga podcast and my practice, Body Matter, is an interdisciplinary learning space where we explore the many ways that movement can help facilitate body acceptance and awareness, reduce pain and stress, regulate the nervous system, and build strength and ease. My teaching plays with the synthesis of Feldenkrais awareness through movement lessons, traditional yoga asana, creative imagery, breathing exercises, self-massage, and a compassionate mindset to help you feel a greater sense of ease and comfort in yourself. Sarah B. Yoga and Body Matter have a lot of other program offerings. These podcasts are just a taste of my teaching. Each week I teach a range of online classes, including a gentle yoga class, a level 2 class for more advanced students, and Feldenkrais classes with monthly themes, anatomy lessons, and Q&A sessions for more in-depth study. I have 2 new online series offerings for the fall. A Feldenkrais series titled Coming to Your Senses, an exploration of the spaces of the eyes, the mouth, jaw, ears, vocal and breathing apparatus. And my second course, Wakeful Body, the blending of yoga and Feldenkrais on Monday nights. As one student recently described Monday nights, that felt like I just gave myself a massage. So these fall classes will be a continuation of some fan favorite stretching sequences that incorporate bolsters and other props to enhance the poses. There is still plenty of time to join these courses live or via the course recordings. You can find more information about these offerings in the show notes. Okay, on to today's episode. Thank you so much for listening.
Hello and welcome to the Sarah B. Yoga podcast. This podcast is an intersection of my yoga teaching and my training in the Feldenkrais method. These are a mixture of yoga classes, Feldenkrais awareness through movement lessons, self-massage, breathing exercises, movement puzzles, and a compassionate mindset. So in the last few weeks in my live classes, I've been focusing on some Psoas release work. The Psoas is a major hip flexor, and I'll talk more about this in a moment. So in today's podcast, you will get just a taste of some of this hip flexor releasing. We will use a multidisciplinary approach, including breathing, some myofascial release, as well as active and passive stretching. For my schedule of live online classes on Zoom and my self-paced yoga and Feldenkrais courses that do include visuals, you can find more at my website, body-matter.com. For today's class, you will need 1, perhaps 2 blocks and a blanket. You could also use a larger towel or a mini inflatable Pilates ball. So you can go grab those things right now as I talk a little bit about the Psoas. This is a major hip flexor. It contracts when you begin to bring your knee towards your chest, and it can get tight for a variety of reasons. One of these can be any kind of physical trauma in which your body went into some kind of a protection response where it curled inward. So you could imagine curling into a little ball, protecting your vitals that are in the front, drawing everything inward, rounding. And in order to do this action, the psoas will tense, it will tighten so that your knees and your head come towards one another. This is one reason you could have tightness there. There could have been something traumatic, whether you remember what that was or not. And then also, if you sit a lot, which many of us do, the psoas is in a constant short state when you're sitting, and it can get pretty tight from that. When this muscle gets tight, it can cause back pain, it can cause hip pain. Not always. But then also the psoas doesn't always respond that well to passive stretching. It might revolt a little bit and rebound back into its short position. So that's why today we're using a few different techniques before we do any passive stretching. So to begin, please lie on your back. Have your knees bent with your feet standing about hips distance. And bring your palms to your lower abdomen. And as you do that, you may notice the front hip points, the bony, pointy part of the pelvis on the right and the left side. Just right now, notice them, but you can rest your palms wherever is comfortable on your abdomen. And just become present to whatever is active in you right now, physically, mentally, emotionally. And whatever's present, try not to engage with it too much. Try not to engage with its storyline. Not judging anything, but just cultivating this ability to be calm and accepting of what is happening in the moment. And then shift your attention to your breathing. Breathing in and out through the nostrils with a soft jaw, relaxed face. Slowly working towards a full diaphragmatic breath so that as you breathe in, the abdomen expands, and on that same breath in, you feel an expansion in your ribs and in your chest. And then you exhale slowly. So the breath in, there's a movement of the lower belly. That same breath in, the movement migrates a little bit towards your ribs and your chest. And you exhale when you need to. Noticing on the exhale the sensation of the whole body sinking a little bit back into the floor. And also the sinking that happens underneath your palms as you exhale. And now we'll just use our fingers to find the psoas muscle, which can be hard to find. It's very deep. So what you'll actually be feeling will be some more superficial muscles. But if you bring your finger points to the tips of your fingers to those bony hip points in the front. So feel those. The right finger pads can feel the right hip point and the left finger pads the left hip point. And then think about where your navel is. If you draw a line from your navel to the right hip point, somewhere right about halfway between those two is where you'll feel your right psoas. Same thing with your left. So you can just slide your hands diagonally towards the belly button. Maybe an inch and a half diagonally upward towards the navel with your fingers. And just give a little bit of pressure into the abdomen. Again, right now you're sensing a lot of more superficial tissues. So we'll look for this in another way. Sensing your right side. Don't actually lift your right foot off the floor. Imagine it's like it's Velcroed. The sole of the right foot is Velcroed to the floor. But you try to lift the right foot from the floor. And so there's an engagement in the leg. And see if you can feel something underneath your right fingertips. And then you let that go. Let's try that on an exhalation. So as you exhale, unweight the right foot. Don't actually lift the sole of the foot from the floor, but you're trying to pull it away from the floor, but it's stuck. See if you can feel something underneath the right fingers. And you can definitely go searching a little bit with the fingers. And inhale, let that go. Try that on the left side. So as you exhale, the sole of your left foot tries to pull away from the floor, but it's stuck on the floor. And see if you can feel a sort of band of deep muscle underneath the left fingertips. And even if you are feeling something engage, again, it's probably still superficial muscle, but you're getting to that general area. You can try that again on your left side. One more time, exhaling. Think of trying to lift the sole of the left foot from the floor as if you're going to draw your left knee towards your chest, but the foot doesn't ever leave the floor, but feel what engages. And then let that go. And just let the abdomen expand for a moment. Keep your fingertips there, so the right finger pads are sensing where you think the psoas might be. Same thing with the left on the left side. Take a full breath in, expand the abdomen. And now as you exhale, think of drawing away the abdomen away from your fingertips. Keep that as you inhale. Actually draw away from the fingertips even more as you inhale so that your chest expands. Maintain that for one more exhale, as if you're sinking away from the fingertips. And then take a big breath in, expand the abdomen. Exhale, pull away from your fingertips. Maintain that as you inhale. Maybe you can even draw the abdomen farther away from the fingertips as you inhale, feeling the chest expand. Maintain that for one more exhale. And inhale, release into a full belly breath. Last time, once more like that. Exhaling, pulling away from the fingertips so that the abdomen draws towards the back of the body. Maintain that as you inhale and think that you're trying to pull even more away from fingertips as you inhale. Exhale, pull away from the fingertips. And inhale, release into a full belly breath. Great. Breathe as you need to. A pace that works for you. And find one of your blocks. Place that block between your upper inner thighs, probably on the most narrow width. So it's near your pubic bone. And the inner thighs have just a gentle hold of the block. The feet are still standing about hips distance, the knees tracking with the feet. Bring the arms down alongside your body. Take a long, slow exhalation and begin to push the feet into the floor, hovering the pelvis off the floor an inch, maybe 2 inches max. Continue to breathe. Feel your thigh bones reaching in the direction of your knees, allowing every exhale to feel the sense of the abdomen sinking towards the back of the body. Now, begin to lift your pelvis very slowly, just another inch or so, but as you're doing it, you're thinking of the outer hips, the outer part of the pelvis lifting, and the inner thighs, which have a hold of the block, are moving back in the direction of the floor. So it's not about how high you can lift. It's not about just engaging the butt. We are intelligently engaging the back of the pelvis. So your outer hips are lifting a little bit towards the ceiling, but your inner thighs are trying to move back in the direction of the floor. If you do those two things simultaneously, you're not going to get very far, but you'll start to feel some engagement. Seeing if the lower belly can have this sense of hollowing. It's not a strong abdominal engagement of pulling the abdomen back, but actually a sinking, a softening. Continue to feel the thigh bones lengthen forward towards the knees. As you breathe in, expand into your chest. As you exhale, feel the lower belly sinking backward, reaching the thighs away from the head. Outer hips lifting while the inner thighs are moving the block back towards the floor. So we want the gluteus maximus, the back of the pelvis, to engage as a way to signal the psoas in the front to lengthen, but it's not just a tight squeeze of the butt. Okay, slowly lower your pelvis down. Take the block out from between the legs, roll to your side, and grab your blanket. So you can come up to sit. We're going to roll the blanket in somewhat of a specific way. So you want your blanket to be in a pretty large rectangle shape so that the long side of the blanket, the long side of the rectangle, is as long as your spine, if not longer. And from that long side, fold the blanket in thirds so that you're creating a flat, very long rectangle. So one side of the rectangle is quite short, and that width of the short side of the rectangle should be no wider than your hip points. Remember the hip points that we touched. So once you have that long, flat, folded blanket, take the short end, grab it, and roll it up so that you have a little bunched up roll or cylinder at the end of the blanket. This should be like a small soccer ball, not bigger than a soccer ball, a little bit smaller. This is also where you can use a mini inflatable Pilates ball. So what we'll do now is lie the abdomen onto this blanket roll. You can put it right between your hip points. You can put your abdomen, your navel, right on it. It shouldn't be wider than your hip points. The hands can stack and the forehead can come to the hands. So your belly down, the legs are long. Have your legs be a little bit wider than your pelvis. And take a moment just to rest here to feel, oh, there's something pushing into my abdomen. How do I feel about that? Am I breathing? And see if you can take a belly breath here, just expanding. And when you exhale, yielding, allowing the blanket to soften deeper into the abdomen. And now just tilt a little bit to the right so that you have more pressure on the right side and you're looking to have the kind of corner of the blanket roll pushing into the right psoas area, inside of the hip point. And we'll stay biased to the right for a bit. While you're here, press your right knee into the floor, actively engaging the knee towards the floor. If the floor weren't there, you would be pulling your right knee towards your chest. This will engage the psoas muscle. So we're actually strengthening the psoas muscle right now. It's a consistent or isometric push of the right knee into the floor. Continue to breathe. And gently release that. Now turn your right toes under and lift your right knee from the floor. Begin to reach back through your right heel, inviting some length into the front of the pelvis now. And so now the attention is to softening, letting the area that's touching the blanket really relax as you reach back through the right heel. Keep the right knee lifted. On every exhalation, you may pause for a moment at the end of the exhale. Feel the weight of you sinking into the blanket. Good. Let that release. Bring your right knee back to the floor. You're still biased to the right. And now bend your right knee 90 degrees. The right knee is still touching the floor, but the right foot is in the air. And again, push your right knee a little bit into the floor. Feel what that does. If you're feeling an engagement of the right psoas, if that's becoming more clear. Release, pushing your right knee into the floor. Keep your right knee bent at 90 degrees. Flex your right ankle. And now just begin to think about unweighting your right knee. You don't need to lift the entire weight of your right knee off the floor, but just think about taking a little bit of pressure off of the right knee, as if you're going to lift the right knee. Some people, you may be able to lift the right knee and it will feel like no problem. But the higher that right knee goes, the more length is coming into the psoas. So just be real mindful here. If someone was pressing on the sole of your right foot, you're pushing back up into them to try to unweight the right knee. And breathing. Good. And then let that rest. Keep your right knee bent. And just sway your right lower leg a little to the right and to the left, like a windshield wiper action. And you can let your pelvis move. And this might feel nice as the blanket shifts a little bit in the abdomen. Good. And then let your right leg lengthen. Come back to the middle so you're more centered on the blanket. The hands are still under the forehead. And just pause here. Sense your shoulders, your jaw, your neck, anywhere you may be able to release any unnecessary tension. And slowly begin to shift to the left. So you bias your pelvis to the left and you feel more pressure pushing into the left side of the abdomen, looking for that psoas muscle. With your left leg long, push your left knee into the floor as if you're trying to bring your left knee towards your chest, but of course the floor is in the way. Continue to breathe here. Again, this is engaging the psoas, so you may feel a slight tightening there behind the blanket. And gently let that release. Turn your left toes under. Lift your left knee. Press back through your left heel. Think about lifting your whole thigh bone towards the ceiling. Your left buttock may engage a little bit. And as you focus on those leg actions, soften in the abdomen, yielding over the blanket. Letting the breath move to different parts of the back ribs, the back of the belly, kidney area. And slowly bring your left knee back to the floor, untuck the toes, bend your left knee 90 degrees. You're still biased to the left. Push your left knee into the floor, actively as if you want to pull your left knee towards your chest, but the floor is in the way. And breathe here. Soften jaw, face. Slowly let that release. Keep your left knee bent 90 degrees. Flex your left ankle so the sole of your left foot faces the ceiling. Think of unweighting your left knee any amount. Slowly, as you unweight the left knee, bit by bit, feeling if you can continue to keep the abdomen soft, yielding into the blanket. You may keep your left knee on the floor. Some of you may lift the left knee, just hovering it. But it's as if you're pushing the sole of your left foot towards the ceiling, wanting to unweight the left knee. It's not about how high your leg gets, it's about what's happening in your abdomen. Good, and then bring your left knee back to the floor, keep it bent, and just let your lower leg rock a little to the right and to the left so that your shin is like a windshield wiper. You're pivoting on your knee. The thigh bone is rolling a little inward and outward. Good. Come back to the center again. Roll the pelvis to the center. Carefully slide your hands back so they're alongside your body, underneath you, underneath the shoulders, planting the hands. And on a strong exhalation, push the hands into the floor. Lift yourself off of the blanket. Move the blanket aside. Press back to child's pose for a moment. You can have your knees wide so that your abdomen now has some space to expand. And you'll feel the echo of that blanket still there. But noticing as you exhale if there's a different kind of sense of dynamic movement, of how the abdomen could draw back towards the back of the body. Good. Now come back onto your belly. Stack your hands again, forehead on the hands. The legs are long, tops of the feet are on the floor. And gently press your pubic bone into the floor. Can keep that. As you're pressing your pubic bone into the floor, you may feel your pelvis tilt a little bit, like you're tucking your tail. So we want to keep this so that this next movement does not move into our lower back, but we really want hip extension. Keeping your right leg straight, float your right leg up towards the ceiling. Lift your inner thigh towards the ceiling, quicker than your outer hip, your outer pelvis. So I just want you to keep thinking of your inner right thigh lifting towards the ceiling, keeping the legs straight. You'll feel your hamstring and your butt engage, but if you just straight up squeeze your butt, it's going to rotate your leg out. That's not what we're looking for. So when we lift the inner thigh quicker than the outer pelvis, we're getting a different kind of engagement, a more nuanced engagement. You may not feel a stretch through the front of your right hip, but we're getting there. But you'll feel the front of the right hip is getting longer. The higher you lift the leg, the longer the front of the right hip gets. Keep the pubic bone rooting into the floor and slowly lower the right leg down. Take a breath. Coming to your left side, starting with the inner left thigh. Think of lifting the straight left leg up from the inner thigh. Keep the straight left leg lifted. Looking for the engagement in the left buttock and the left hamstring without a big external rotation of your left leg. The pubic bone is rooting into the floor. There should not be lower back tightness or even extension. We're looking for hip extension. Good. Let that rest. Rest your buttock. Shimmy your pelvis a little side to side. Good. Come back to neutral with your pelvis. Bring your arms alongside the body and interlace your hands behind the back. You can always grab a strap for this. Hover your forehead from the floor. Begin to draw your upper arm bones towards one another so that the shoulders lift away from the floor. The collarbones begin to lift away from the floor. Shoulder blades are drawing towards the spine. Feel your pubic bone root down. The chest is lifting. The sternum's moving forward and up. The front of the throat can start to move back. That may lift your head and move your head back a little bit. Continue to feel your upper arm bones draw towards one another. You can stay here, or with straight legs, begin to lift the legs from the inner thighs. Imagine there's a block there between your inner thighs, and you want to lift it straight up towards the ceiling. Can you keep the pubic bone gently rooted towards the floor. Good. One more breath in, this full locust pose. And exhale, let that release. Slide your hands underneath your shoulders, push up to your hands and your knees, and exhale back to downward facing dog. Rooting the palms into the floor, pushing the floor down and forward with your hands. Engage the center of the armpit away from the floor. Broaden the upper back. And actively push back with the tops of the thighs. Great. Now bring your knees down and grab your single block and put that block between your inner thighs, the narrow width between the inner thighs. And again, press back to down dog. And while you're in down dog, begin to move the inner thighs back and up. Stay active with the arms, looking for the length in the spine. Taking a breath in, expanding through side ribs and chest. And as you exhale, feel the abdomen doming towards the back of the body. Pause at the end of the exhale and see if you may be able to allow for more of this movement of the abdomen towards the back of the body. Inhale when you need to. Keep reaching the inner thighs and that block back and up. And as you exhale, allowing, softening, so that the abdomen domes towards the back of the body. Pausing at the end of the exhale. Feeling the pause at the end of the exhale helps suspend the pelvis. Good. Exhale slowly. Lower down. Bring your knees down. Take the block out from between the legs. And walk your hands over to one side. Swing your legs around so that you can come back onto your back. Stand your feet. Knees are bent. Take your block and slide it underneath your pelvis so that it is across the pelvis. It's on its lowest height. If you need more height for this next stretch, you can use a second block. Stack the second block on top of the first block so that you have a lot of surface area across the back of the pelvis. So you have this block under the pelvis. Draw your left knee in towards your chest and take a hold of the knee with your hands. You can interlace the hands near the top of the shin. And then lengthen your right leg long so that the back of your right heel touches the floor. Your right leg is in a neutral rotation. Hug that right leg a little bit towards the midline. And when I say neutral rotation of the right leg, that means the right knee points to the ceiling, the right toes point towards the ceiling. And now can you draw your left knee any closer towards your chest? And when you do that, you may feel your pelvis tilt a little bit. Go ahead and let that happen. Your lower back might round. Your pelvis is following your bent left knee, the movement of the left thigh. So let that happen. It may create a little bit more stretch through the front of your right hip. And keep the left knee quite close in towards the chest. Now, re-engage length through your right leg. Think of your inner right thigh rooting back towards the floor. If you're not feeling any stretch through the front of the right hip, you can put a second block under the pelvis. But in this shape, can you engage your right buttock? So your inner right thigh is still moving back towards the floor, and now engage the right buttock as if you want to lift the right side of the pelvis off of your block. That's not going to happen, but you're trying to move in that direction. Your left knee stays in towards your chest. The breath is calm, open, spacious. The inner right thigh moves back towards the floor, and that right buttock engages and tries to lift the right pelvis off of the block. Great. Slowly let that rest. Release your left knee, stand your left foot, stand your right foot. Make sure that you feel like the pelvis is on the block in an appropriate way, and bring your right knee in towards your chest. Hold it with your two hands. Lengthen your left leg long, finding that neutral rotation of the left leg. The back of the left heel is touching the floor. Can you hug your right knee even more towards your chest? Allowing your pelvis to tilt as you do that. Allowing your lower back to round a little bit. The lower back may feel like it's moving towards the floor. The pubic bone may feel like it's drawing towards your navel. So let that happen. And maintain that, and then re-engage length through your left leg. In a more nuanced way, move the inner left thigh back towards the floor. As your inner thigh moves back towards the floor, your right knee towards your chest, engage your left buttock. Try to lift the left pelvis off of the block. Now, this is engagement of the agonist muscle of the psoas, so you engage the opposite muscle that you want to lengthen. Try to lift the left pelvis from the block. Keep breathing. Maybe you can find a little opening across the chest. And exhale, let that release. Stand your right foot, stand your left foot. Bring your arms down alongside your body. Push the feet firmly into the floor. And as you lift off of the blocks, think of your outer hips lifting quicker than your inner thighs. And then slide that block out from underneath the pelvis. Bring the pelvis down. And grab whatever you need for a short rest. You can take your legs long, or you could put a bolster underneath your thighs. Bring your arms down alongside the body. And feeling now how you meet the floor, what kind of awareness you have of your pelvis, the front of the pelvis, the soft tissues of the abdomen, and all of their connections that migrate into the front of the pelvis and down the legs. Maybe you feel a different kind of connection of the abdomen, low back, the hips, the whole pelvic region. But just becoming present to what feels active in you now. If you feel like there was some kind of a release, staying with your sensations, sensing the subtle changes of sensation that happen moment by moment as you continue to rest. And you feel how the body keeps settling into the floor. Notice the back of your head, the sensations of your face. Soften the jaw. All around the eyes and the forehead. Feeling the backs of the shoulders and the weight of the arms. And noticing the sensations of your breath. Maybe the breath is a little bit more quiet, subtle. Sensing the whole body from the top of the head down to the soles of your feet. And this central area that we worked our attention on, the abdomen, the pelvis. And then can you just begin to expand your awareness to the space around you, the field of energy around the body? Like you're taking in a whole vista when you look outward, when the eyes move into peripheral vision. There's a sense of a wide perspective. Can you do that here in Shavasana? Not with your eyes, but with your whole being sensing. Noticing a sense of expansiveness. Maybe cultivating a sensation of receptivity. And when you're ready, just start to find maybe a deeper breath or a sigh out through the mouth. Moving a bit, fingers, toes. You can roll your head side to side. And then gently rolling to one side, pausing there for a moment. Feeling the weight of your head. Using your hands, press yourself up to a comfortable seat. Keep attention to the abdomen staying soft as you belly breathe. And the palms can come together. May you be free of inner and outer harm. May you be happy and peaceful. May you be healthy and strong, and may you care for yourself with joy. Take a breath in, and exhale. Namaste.
Are you enjoying this podcast? I've chosen to offer these audio recordings freely for over 15 years. I do this because research shows yoga, yoga nidra, and Feldenkrais to be valuable practices, those which I would like to share widely. Dana, the Buddhist practice of generosity, has always been a pillar of my business. And more generally, Dana is the inclination to give without expecting any form of repayment. It does, however, take a fair amount of time, effort, and cost to maintain and keep the podcasts available. If you feel you've benefited from what you've learned from these classes, then please do consider making a contribution towards the maintenance and upkeep of the classes. It will help ensure that I can continue to offer the podcast classes freely and keep generating new material. Give what you can. Give what feels good. If it's too little, it won't feel good. If it's too much, it won't feel good. Links to support the show monetarily can be found in the show notes. And other ways to give include sharing the podcast with others, leaving a 5-star rating and review, or just sending me an email with how the classes have affected you. Thanks so much.